45, 50, but you still love it, enjoy it, 100% like you start that thing.
No press release, no handshake, no flashy gloves with flags, just a raw 30-second clip dropped on social media without warning, without promo, without context. The only sound was gloves cracking through air like gunfire, and in the frame was Manny Pacquiao, 46 years old, moving like he never left the ring. No announcement, no opponent, no comeback tease, just Manny doing what he does best. It didn't need a caption, because when Pacquiao trains like that, the boxing world stops and listens whether it wants to or not. Suddenly, the silence surrounding the clip spoke louder than the punches themselves. Fans swarmed the comments. Analysts broke it down frame by frame, and retired champions tossed out respect emojis like confetti. But one name kept surfacing, unspoken, yet undeniable. Canelo Alvarez. He wasn't tagged, wasn't mentioned, and yet his presence hovered over every conversation. Because when Manny Pacquiao moves like that at 46, every active champion feels the gravity, especially the biggest one. Canelo didn't post a response, didn't drop a challenge, didn't say a word, but something shifted. In boxing, the most powerful messages are often the ones left unsaid. Canelo Alvarez isn't one to overreact. His legacy is built on patience, precision, and a silence that often hits harder than his punches. He's brushed off trash talk, stared down chaos at press conferences, and ignored countless online callouts without blinking. But this wasn't noise, this was different. Pacquiao's training video didn't beg for attention, and that's exactly why it demanded it. For a fighter like Canelo, who's mastered every modern style, from surgical pressure to ruthless body shots, what he saw wasn't nostalgia, it was a reminder. Pacquiao's movement, the rhythm, the violence packed into every step, it didn't look like a farewell, it looked like hunger. And Canelo recognized it instantly.
Official weight 145, 3/4 pounds. His professional record, 50 victories, including 38 knockouts.
That's why, even in silence, the moment felt deeply personal for Canelo Alvarez, a fighter who trains at altitude, lives in the gym, and obsesses over every detail. Watching a 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao move with that kind of fire didn't feel like nostalgia. It felt like a gut check. It wasn't admiration, it was a reminder that greatness doesn't age. It evolves. Pacquiao wasn't just sharp for his age, he was sharp, period. His speed didn't echo the past, it threatened the present, and for a champion like Canelo, used to being the measuring stick, the clip forced an unspoken comparison not of records or belts, but of hunger, of who still trains like they're chasing something. In a sport where even a raised eyebrow becomes a headline, Canelo's silence spoke volumes. No trash talk, no call-out, no reaction video, just a quiet shift in the air that fans felt instantly. Because when Pacquiao moves like that, the myth becomes the standard, and even the most disciplined legends are forced to look inward. Canelo didn't need to speak, the boxing world did it for him. There was something almost haunting about that kind of silence, because when a reigning champion, like Canelo Alvarez, doesn't respond to a moment that sets the entire boxing world buzzing, it doesn't feel like indifference, it feels like calculation. Like he's watching, replaying, absorbing, not out of fear, but out of respect for what most fans miss on the first viewing. That Pacquiao's display wasn't flash, it was rhythm. And rhythm like that, at 46, doesn't come from root, comes from obsession. For Canelo, whose dominance has been defined by precision and control, seeing a man throw with that kind of looseness and fire may have stirred something deeper than rivalry. It stirred memory. A memory of when boxing was raw, when fighters fought not for the spectacle, but because they couldn't stop moving forward. Maybe that's why Canelo didn't speak, because there was nothing to add. Maybe his reaction lived in the next morning's training, in the reps, in the silence between rounds. A kind of mutual understanding only two warriors from different eras could share. Pacquiao didn't post that clip to challenge anyone, but it became a challenge anyway, not to Canelo, but to the sport itself. A reminder that true greatness doesn't fade, it sharpens, it sweats, it endures. And in that quiet, watching from afar, Canelo may have said more than words ever could. That's what fans couldn't stop talking about. It wasn't what Canelo said. It was what he didn't. The man who usually dictates the rhythm of the sport, who commands headlines just by picking an opponent, suddenly found himself outside the spotlight, not because he slipped, not because he lost, but because someone from a different era reminded the world what real hunger looks like. Not the kind driven by contracts or titles, but the kind that lives in sweat, repetition, and an undying fire. When that kind of energy hits the internet, it's not just watched hits felt. And no matter how dominant Canelo has been, when Manny Pacquiao drops a training clip like that, even the face of boxing gets cast in shadow, if only for a moment. The whispers turned into questions. Could Canelo move like that at 46? Would he even want to? Was his silence not avoidance, but reflection? Because when you witness someone push that hard with nothing left to prove, it forces you to look inward. The fans weren't hungry for drama, they were searching for proof that someone at the top still burns that brightly. And maybe, just maybe, Canelo's silence wasn't hesitation or pride, it was recognition. A quiet moment of respect. Because sometimes, when greatness enters the room, even legends know to sit back, feel it, and take notes.
Insane 10-punch combo.
Yep. Goes to the flurry again. Yep. Goes to the flurry.
In a way, that's what made it all so powerful. There was no official connection between Pacquiao and Canelo. No training session, no sparring, not even a photo in the same gym. Just speculation, imagination, and a flood of fans stitching together a narrative from a 30-second clip. Because that's what moments like this do, they create tension without even trying. Pacquiao didn't need to train with Canelo. He just had to show the world what real, obsessive work looks like. And in doing so, he unintentionally challenged the entire sport to reevaluate its current champions. The comparison wasn't about resumes or records, it was about rhythm, discipline, and pure hunger. When a 46-year-old can shake the sport with nothing more than MIT work, it's not nostalgia, it's a gut check. And like it or not, Canelo was pulled into that conversation. In a boxing landscape flooded with call-outs and cloud chasing, Pacquiao brought it all back to the root: sweat, tempo, fire. He didn't need to name names. His training spoke for itself. And fans didn't expect a press release from Canelo, weren't listening for words, they were watching for reactions. Reading between the timelines, trying to catch a glimpse of that silent moment behind closed doors, when a disciplined champion saw something that made even him stop and think. Maybe all Canelo said was a quiet damn. Maybe he said nothing at all. But the fact that fans are still asking, that's proof enough Pacquiao's work landed exactly where it was meant to, in the hearts of every fighter who still wants to matter. Boxing doesn't need hype when the work speaks, and that's exactly what happened here. Manny Pacquiao didn't look like a retired legend shaking off rust or staying loose for nostalgia's sake. He looked like a problem, like time was chasing him, and he still refused to slow down. And that hit something primal, not just in fans, but in fighters. Canelo Alvarez has spent his entire career as the benchmark, the gold standard, the fighter everyone else measures themselves against. But for the first time in years, someone older, smaller, and supposedly finished reminded the world what that standard used to look like, when it was forged in empty gyms, built without cameras, and fueled by nothing but hunger. That's not easy to ignore, even for a champion. So maybe Canelo's silence wasn't avoidance, maybe it was respect, or maybe, deep down, it was a reset. Because when you see someone grind like that, not for promotion, not for validation, just for the love of the process, it forces you to ask what all of it really means. The belts, the money, the spotlight, none of it matters if the fire isn't still there. That's what Pacquiao showed. And that's why, even without being tagged, the world looked to Canelo. Because when a 46-year-old moves with that kind of purpose, it makes every other fighter question who they'll be when the lights dim. Manny didn't train with Canelo, but somehow, he still got in his head.